Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Divya. Today's class is going to be very different from what you might be used to here on my channel. Today's class is going to be a combination of a posture clinic followed by a little bit of applied practice. So the posture that we'll be focusing on today is Adho Mukha Svanasana, also known as downward facing dog. Now, this is such a foundational practice when it comes to asana because there's a lot of stuff that gets built off of this in terms of sequences, but also it's a great way to practice a lot of skills like steadiness, postural awareness, mind-body connection. You can incorporate the bandhas, you can incorporate breathing. It's really the practice that just keeps giving. So what we'll focus on today are things like what I said, the bandhas. We'll also focus on alignment. We'll think a little bit about transitioning from downward dog into other postures. And then we'll put it into practice so you can actually see and apply some of the new techniques, and hopefully you'll notice a difference. All you'll need today is a mat to practice on. I also recommend grabbing some blocks if you have them, because we will be incorporating them into a few of the options for variations and transitions. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and take a seat down on the mat. I'm just going to be sitting in Vajrasana with my hips rested on my heels. Hands can come down to the knees. Before we get started with the actual sort of breakdown of Adho Mukha Svanasana, we're going to warm up a few parts of the body that will come in handy as we're doing this practice. So starting with the wrists, right? Because we are putting a lot of the weight into our hands when we're doing downward facing dog. So let's just start by flexing and shaking out the wrists. Let's start by extending the arms forward and just shaking out the wrists, getting out any kinks, loosen them up a little bit. And then go ahead and grab one hand, flip the wrist so it's facing forward, and press the fingertips down, just stretching, not stressing. Stretching the front and the back of the wrist. Same thing, flip your hand the other way and press down. You could also just go up and down. And same thing on the other side, pressing up and down just a few times to warm it up. And then keeping your arms extended, form a fist and start rotating your wrists one direction while keeping your forearms as still as possible, just getting some mobility through the wrist joint, and then switch directions going the other way. And then while we're here, we're going to focus on releasing the neck a little bit, because that is something that people tend to hike their shoulders up in this posture. So we want to focus on releasing them away from the neck. So just take a few shoulder rotations backwards, lifting the shoulders all the way up to the ears, and then pressing your shoulders back so that your shoulder blades are touching, and then dropping them down a few more times backwards. And then let's switch directions to now come forward. And go ahead and come to stillness. And last thing we're going to do is just a couple of neck lengthening stretches. So go ahead and grab the side of your head with your left hand, drop your right hand down to the floor, and gently tug so that your left ear is coming down to the left shoulder. And let's switch sides. This time use your right hand to pull the head to the right, lengthening the left side of the neck. And just take any final neck rotations that might be helpful to you here while I quickly tie up my hair so it's not falling in my face. Okay, great. And then from here, let's come to tabletop Brahmasana. So drop your hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. We're going to practice a few things here. So first, I want you to look down at your hands, press the weight into the base of your wrist or your palm, or sorry, your wrist, and then lift your fingertips up and spread them really wide, like there's these threads of energy shooting out from the fingertips, drawing them forward. Now, starting from the base of your hand, gently start to lay your palm down on the mat, fingertips coming down at the very end. Now, press into your finger pads and draw them back towards the center of the palm. What's probably naturally happening for you is that the middle joint of your finger is picking up a little bit, creating the suction cup effect. This is the difference between an active and a passive hand posture. Now release that bind and just drop your hand back down. So you should feel a lot stronger through the hands when you have the hand bind activated. This is called Hasta Bandha, versus when your hand is just sort of passively on the floor. Also, another thing, if you tighten the grip again, you might notice that as you're tightening the grip, you feel muscles in your forearms and even up into your shoulders, your upper arms, into your upper back activating, because you're starting to prepare to bear more weight and load more weight onto your hands. So what the Hasta Bandha does is it sort of trains the hand to act the way the feet do. When we're standing on our feet, we are rarely just passively standing there with all of our weight just kind of loosely balanced. Typically what we're doing is, if we're standing with stability and purpose, we are gripping the floor underneath our feet. We're pressing the sole of our foot down and drawing energy up so that we're activating through the thighs, the hips, even the core. That's what keeps us stable when we're on our feet. So we're just applying the same principle to our hand. Now, moving into the core and the shoulders, let's start by going through a few rounds of cat-cow, Madhyasana, Bithilasana. So drop the belly, lift the tailbone up, turn your gaze up towards the ceiling, coming into cow pose. And as you exhale, tuck the chin into the chest, press into your Hasta Bandha, into your hand bind. Feel your shoulder blades broaden across your back. Now, draw the navel in towards the spine and tuck your tailbone. Inhale, coming into cow pose, Bithilasana. Exhale, Madhyasana, cat pose. So the most important thing that I want you to focus on that we're going to use for downward dog is the Hasta Bandha and also the Uddiyana Bandha, the abdominal bind. So when we draw our navel back towards our spine, we're also flattening the abdominal wall against the spine, which helps to support the lower back and take some of the weight off of other parts of the body. All right, so on this last breath, I'm just gonna have my blocks out of the way here just so I can show you. We're gonna go ahead and press up into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So now that we're here, take a moment to just shift your weight back and forth between your hands and your feet and just see how this weight distribution feels like. You can reach the heels down towards the floor, see what the length feels like in the back of the body through the hamstrings, and then shift a little bit forward and see what it feels like to have more weight on the front half of the body. From here, go ahead and reactivate your Hasta Bandha. So press into those finger pads, draw the energy into the center of your palm. And this time I want you to continue to visualize this pull of energy all the way up your arms into your upper back. Broaden the shoulders across the back. And now notice your elbows. See if your elbows are facing the sides. And if they are, I want you to start rotating them underneath and then push back a little bit more. If our elbows are facing to the sides, we can really only push so far before our shoulder blades start to get a little bit irritated. So now roll the elbows underneath so that they're facing a little bit more towards the bottom of the mat or towards your mat, and press your arms back. Now look somewhere between your toes or your knees, maybe even towards the navel, and draw your navel in towards the spine. By the way, you can also come down to your knees at any point if you need a break. I'm probably going to need a break every now and then because it's very hard to talk and do this at the same time. Right. So just shift your gaze so that the back of your neck relaxes. So maybe nod your head a couple times, shake it side to side. And then send your awareness to your navel and draw it back towards your lower back or towards the spine, and reach your heels down a little bit further. Now, another option, because if you're like me, body proportions start to play into your stability in downward facing dog. So my arms are a little bit shorter than the lower half of my body, at least proportionately speaking. So what I like to do is use blocks. This basically gives the upper half of my body a little bit more length so that the weight distributes more evenly, more comfortably. And I get a deeper stretch in my hamstrings because I can shift some of the weight into my heels, thereby pressing the hamstrings a little bit further down and getting more of a stretch. This also gives me a little bit more vertical clearance, so that as I'm transitioning forward, I have more space to bring the feet to the top of the mat. So now let's go ahead and think about transitions. There's a few ways that you can come forward in downward dog. So you can either take many steps to the top of the mat, totally fine. You can take a few steps, so you can take one giant step forward, then another giant step forward, or you can hop. So there's 3 different options. For some people, it can be a little bit difficult to jump forward or to come forward because without the blocks, if I press them down, I personally have a limited amount of space. So you can see when I step my foot forward, it stops about 8 inches in front of or behind my hand. Versus when I'm using the blocks and I step my foot forward, I can come right up to my hand. So blocks help a lot in this case. Excuse me. Another thing you can do is to sort of move your belly out of the way, if that does get in the way, by taking wide steps forward to the top of the mat. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, so from here, let's practice the transition a few times. If you're using the blocks, great. If not, try widening your stance as you step to the forward, step to the forward, step to the front. Maybe try also stepping with your non-dominant foot. So I always lead with my right. Try stepping forwards and backwards with your other foot. Just a few more times for practice. Maybe try jumping. See how that feels. But remember the core things that we talked about. The Hasta Bandha, the long neck, pulling the elbows in, and pulling the navel in towards your spine. All right, so from here, let's try putting this into practice. Inhale, gaze forward. We're gonna step up with big steps to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift, and exhale, step back to downward facing dog. Drop your knees, chest, and chin down to the floor, gazing ahead. Inhale, come forward into Bhujangasana, and exhale, coming into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Another option, inhale, kick the right foot up into the air. As you exhale, now here's another transition I want you to keep in mind. As you shift forward, the reason that a lot of people struggle is because they're shooting their knee forward, and it's a little bit hard to get all the way ahead. Let me move the blocks out the way. So if you're just shooting your knee forward, you're not really using the body mechanics that are going to help you get all the way there. So what I recommend is first drawing the knee in towards the core, keeping your shoulders strong, shift forward, and then step the foot down. All right, that's the one I forgot. I knew I forgot one of the techniques. All right, let's try that with the other foot. Inhale, left leg high. And as you exhale, shift the weight forward, keeping the knee tucked into the core, and then step the foot forward. Inhale, back, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Exhale, knees, chest, and chin down to the mat. Inhale, Bhujangasana. And exhale, downward facing dog. All right, let's go ahead and come down to the knees. To tabletop, Bharmasana, we're gonna start winding down. Inhale, come into Bithilasana, cow pose. Exhale, Marjaryasana, cat pose. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the gaze. Exhale, round the tailbone, hollow out the belly, press the mat away. And go ahead and sit back on your heels in Vajrasana. Whew. I am sweating. I don't know if it's these lights or all the downward dog and the shifting, but I hope that these techniques have been helpful to you, that you learned how that you can get into downward dog more sustainably, how you can transition between postures, and use things like blocks in your practice to make downward dog more accessible, and also to help you feel stronger and more confident when you're in this posture. Thanks so much for practicing with me. I'm sorry you had to listen to me pant and be out of breath, but hopefully it just shows that this is a tough practice. So be kind to yourself, use the props, and I will see you in the next one.